So, it was successful in eliciting the fact that your own father is going to use the fact that you used racially charged language in the past to just label you as a racist. And what that means is you're a hateful, bad, evil, stupid racist whose opinions are completely illegitimate and can only be inspired by hate. Even if you have formed any racially oriented analyses or beliefs or opinions, these are all purely motivated by hate, or just because somebody else told you to feel that way, or because of some dumb reason, meaning that the only reason you could feel this way is invalid reasons. You're an invalid racist. You're a racist, and that's invalid. And you know what? If I told my parents that I was a devil worshiper, they wouldn't even, take their eyes off the television. That's kind of where we are as a society, is that your parents' eyes are glued to the fucking TV so much that if you tell them, Mom, I worship Satan, I worship the devil, they'd just be, they wouldn't even stop watching television. Their eyes would just continue to be glued to the TV. Say, Mom, I worship Lucifer. I'm a follower of the dark path. I'm an acolyte of the Prince of Darkness. And they say, stop annoying us, Matt. We're watching TV. Say, Mom, I want to worship Satan. It's the path for me. I've really thought about it. Their eyes will remain glued to the television. You can say, Mom, I've been reading Karl Marx's book, Das Kapital, or The Communist Manifesto, co-written by Friedrich Engels, inspired by Moses Hess. And, some of this stuff is really great. Lenin, Trotsky, even Stalinism. And just the eyes will remain glued to the television. And they will turn up the volume on the television. That's what they'll do. And maybe over the weekend, when they're gabbing with their family and friends, they might say, oh, Matthew's going through a phase. He's going through a phase of communism. Nothing to worry about. So, maybe they don't realize that sometimes people say things just because the people they're dealing with are complete zombies whose eyes are glued to the television, and they're not able to think. Now, New York City doesn't have any working class white people in it. So essentially all the working class people are black, Latin, Latino, and, other forms of immigrants. You really essentially do not have a working class of white people. And, of course, you're going to encounter those difficult types of people to talk to. You're like, oh, well, I see white truckers all the time in New York City, and I see white construction workers, and this kind of thing. Not realizing that, their personal experience doesn't reflect housing patterns and the broader economy, and that these people commute into the city to work. They're coming from out of the city. And so you're talking to somebody who lives in New York City, and what you realize is that you live in an oppressed household, where the father is like some Nixon voter, but is just kind of tuned out of life to a degree, that he doesn't really care about anything. He only brings up politics, to defend himself against the attacks of his wife, who's fully mobilized at this point as an old lady. Decided to just fully mobilize politically from her couch, screaming at her husband. It's just a stupid situation. It's like you're talking to these people about values and worldviews and, understanding how these things arise and understanding the systems of interplay. And you're not talking to people that are at that level. You're talking to people who hear you say a racially charged thing one time and will just always say you're a racist and have nothing to contribute to this conversation about race. So, that's what happens when the culture takes over, and the culture takes precedence over what would be a family trying to just help their kids out in life. The best thing that can happen at this point is that my sister gets pregnant and just has a kid, and my mom can just be the grandma and stop trying to be a really bad political, actor. And a really bad, partisan. And it's sad to see a man that himself understands, like, he is basically woke himself. He understands that in New York, like, all the violent crimes of a certain type, armed robberies and such, gun crime, gang-related crime, is the Black and Latin communities. And, so he has these sensibilities. He is essentially, if you're going to call that, in living in New York, picking up on the fact that there's no white working class and that all the criminals are Black or, Latin, that doesn't make you a racist, but it definitely makes you aware of being white, racially woke. So he is that kind of, racist in terms of just, in the New York context of basically everyone in New York is a racist to a degree because it's New York, right? It doesn't mean that he's an actual racist, but he's a New York racist, and then he calls me a racist. So what does he mean when he says that? Because is he saying that I'm even more racist than a New York racist? Because he's a racist because he's from New York and he's white, and he associates with all whites, and he's proud of that. And of course, he has a lower view of maybe some of the elements of Black society. But for me, weird thing is, like, on a personal level, I find certain Black women more attractive than like most white women with blue eyes. For instance, like, I think that the Black look or the half Black look or the mixed look is a lot of times many times more elegant and very, very beautiful compared to something like, what would be like the way some Irish girls don't really look very glamorous. So yeah, there I am, just going off on being anti-Irish racism, right? So, but if you come home and you say, yeah, you know what? All these girls at my high school, all the Irish ones, they're not really that attractive. I mean, they don't have curves, and they don't really wear hoop earrings, and they don't wear makeup, and they're all just out there playing field hockey, sweating in the sun. So it's kind of like, if I say that, they're just like, well, this kid's just being an asshole, but they're not picking up on a race realism aspect of that. So it's weird. Like, you can criticize that race, and it just is seen as an aesthetic thing. Like, oh, I like blue eyes. I like brown eyes. I like red hair. I like blondes. So certain types of racism would fit the pattern. So it's just ironic that I'm being accused of being a racist, and that means, of course, anti-Black. He accused me of hating Jews. This is another one. This is even more insane, and this will probably take 5 more videos. 5 more segments of these 15-minute spreakers. So yeah, I was a World War II nut when I was younger. In my mid-20s, I loved Nazi Germany in terms of learning about it, and it really advanced my thinking because it allowed me to see beyond just the Atlanticism or the opposite of that, like communism or something like. It allowed me to see. Okay, so Atlanticism says that markets are basically anointed by God. Like the stock market is anointed by God. And communism says stock markets are the devil. But German idealism, which is what the Nazis essentially appeal to in their rhetoric, says that markets are natural to a point, but then beyond a certain point they become unnatural. So what it is an organic view of society. And so the thing is that sometimes when you're in your mid-20s, you can get really excited about German idealism. And if it happens to be Nazis who are the first people who expose you to German idealism, then, you're gonna grow an affinity towards them, even though they're responsible for like war crimes and atrocities and crimes against humanity and transgressed morality. But they're gonna develop this kind of mystique because, again, we live in a culture where there is no God. That means there is no Satan. And just like that, we need a new God, we need a new devil. And so, no suburban kid can come home to his parents anymore and shock them by saying he likes Satan or he wants to worship Satan. It's just, there's no shock value anymore because nobody cares about God. Nobody really cares about that. So, here are those steps.